Good evening, everyone. The time is 5 o'clock. Welcome to the February 2023 meeting of the Omaha Public Power District Board of Directors. Thank you all for joining us in person at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center and remotely via WebEx. I hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy, and it looks like everybody made it here safely today, so glad for that. With me in person today are my fellow board members, Amanda Bogner, Mike Kavanaugh, Matt Core, Sarah Howard, Janice Molhoff, Craig Moody, and Mary Spurgeon. We also have President and CEO Javier Fernandez, our General Counsel Steve Bruckner with the Fraser Stryker Law Firm, and members of our board meeting support staff. OPPD's executive leadership team and subject matter experts are also participating in today's meeting in public and via WebEx. Additionally, we currently have 10 people online, and 10 people in the room and 22 people online on WebEx, consisting of OPPD employees and members of the public. As a reminder to board members, executive leadership team, and OPPD staff, please mute your microphones to reduce background noise. To members of the public, thank you for attending. You are in listen-only mode. If you have any technology questions, please use the chat feature in WebEx to communicate with the event host. If you are disconnected from the WebEx conference, we ask that you rejoin in the same manner as when you originally joined. I will now ask a member of OPPD's physical security team to provide the safety briefing for our location and for Javier Fernandez to provide other safety reminders.
Good evening and welcome to February's board meeting. Thank you for joining us, especially with the bad weather that was out there. It looks like it's clearing up a little bit, but always something to be cautious about, and hopefully the roads will be even better for our way out. So please be careful as you leave. As always, we'd like to start with some safety information. So for those of us in the room, we do have first aid equipment and fire suppression materials near the exit doors on either side of the room. So in the event of an evacuation or an emergency, you would be directed to either of those doors where we would use the stairwells to go outside of the building. Thankfully, we don't have to worry about any type of extreme weather, but if that was a concern, we would go down into the garage area where we would wait for the all clear. We also have deputies, members of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office here present with us that would assist us during any type of emergency as well. And if anybody were in need of any type of emergency services, we do have extra first aid supplies with us tonight. If there was anybody that was in need of any type of medical emergency, whether online or here, please make us aware. We'll try to get the help as quickly as possible. We'd also remind everybody to be aware of any trips or falls or cords or anything else that might lead us to the emergency ward faster than anything else. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you, Josh. I'm going to go over the right side of the screen for those who are watching online and here on site. Psychological safety is probably just as important as the physical safety aspects that Josh just walked us through. Every month I focused on one of these 5 aspects of psychological safety. On Tuesday, I focused on healthy conflict, and that's what I intend to do today. It's really promoting a culture where we acknowledge there is conflict. We have conflicting views. We have conflicting goals that we're constantly trying to figure out and weigh in different options. And the key here is having a healthy conflict culture where we have a culture of respect, knowing that every party typically comes to the table with good intentions, with a positive intent to resolve conflict. So that's something that we always promote at OPPD, and it's part of our psychological safety culture to make sure that everybody feels safe coming to the table and discussing and sometimes having conflict conversations, always in a respectful manner. Next slide, please. Our focus for February on safety, applying direct controls is incredibly important. A direct control, for example, a hard barrier could be a primary differentiator between success and failure when protecting against serious injury. An example of these, and we do these all the time, when we have our line crews out in weather conditions like this one, and they're on the side of the road with their bucket trucks replacing and restoring power, it's always important to count on those additional direct controls, additional barriers. Should a car, a vehicle lose control, make sure that you have additional barriers that could protect us from being in direct harm's way. This is something that we apply at all levels of the organization. This is just one of those examples. The other one is utilizing pre-job briefs. It doesn't matter how complex or how routine of a job we do at OPPD, and this is something that I recommend all of us to do is take time at the beginning of each job, talk about what is it that you're going to do, explain that to others who are going to participate with you on that job to make sure that everybody understands the risks and how to mitigate those risks on pre-job briefs. And lastly, February, I think this coincides with Valentine's. It's American Heart Month, where it's a good reminder that for all of us to focus on our cardiovascular health, go do your preventive health checks, and just a good reminder for us to do that. That concludes my safety briefing.
Great, thanks very much. Now let's run through our guidelines for the conduct of the meeting. This regular board meeting will follow the agenda made available to the public on oppd.com. This meeting is being conducted in person with WebEx conferencing and is being recorded. Our board meetings have public comment periods on the agenda. Comments made by all parties during the meeting are part of the official public record. After the introduction of action items, board members will ask for clarifying questions from staff, and then I will ask for public comment. After public comment, the board will conduct its discussion on the matter and then vote. Also, before we adjourn, there will be an opportunity to comment on any other matters of district business. We will take comments in the room first and then via WebEx. For in-person attendees, if you wish to comment, please line up behind the microphone in the center of the room. Please state your name, your address, and the name of any organization or person you represent. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending. To assist you, we will use the timer that is in the room. Ms. Lane will signal you when 30 seconds remain, as well as when your time is up. If you have written materials, please deliver them to the OPPD representatives in the room. Next, we will review the 2 options for WebEx attendees to notify us. Option 1, which is being displayed now, involves sending the meeting technology host a message using the chat feature, simply saying that you wish to speak.
Thank you, Chair Williams. For those of you who have joined us using a computer or WebEx mobile app, you will find a button in your WebEx interface to open the chat panel. Once opened, you may send your message to the meeting technology host. Requests to provide comments will be relayed to Chair Williams for recognition during the public comments section.
Option 2, which is being displayed now, involves the hand raise feature.
WebEx allows attendees to virtually raise their hand. You may use this feature to indicate to OPPD that you wish to be recognized to provide comments. The hand raise button can be found in the lower control bar of WebEx. After you have provided your comments, please press the hand raise button again to virtually lower your hand. And for those of you who have joined the meeting using only a telephone, WebEx has a hand raise feature that is activated by pressing *3 to raise and lower your hand. When we see your hand raised, we will acknowledge you by referencing a portion of your phone number. For example, caller with a phone number beginning in 402-123. If you wish to provide comments when recognized, please wait a brief moment to be unmuted and begin speaking. At this time, if you would like to try using the hand raise feature, please do so as a test.
Great. I'll allow plenty of time at each opportunity for public comment for members of the public to provide notification via WebEx. When I call on a member of the public to speak, our board meeting technology host will unmute your microphone. Before commencing your comments, I suggest you first affirm that we can hear you. Please state your name and address and state the name of any organization or person you are representing. Organizations should choose one representative to speak on their behalf. Each individual will be allotted 3 minutes per matter pending at the discretion of the board. To assist you, we will display a timer on WebEx to ensure that each member of the public receives a consistent amount of time. Ms. Lane will signal when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is up. For all attendees, please direct your comments to me. I will either respond to you directly or defer response to another board member or officer of the district. The board welcomes and values civil, respectful, clear, and concise communication from the public. During public comments, speakers should refrain from repetitious, profane, or irrelevant comments. Speakers shall refrain from polling the board, as such vote is not on the agenda and is prohibited by law. If you have written materials, please email them to corporatesecretary@oppd.com. It's all one word, corporatesecretary@oppd.com, and they will be received on our behalf. For those at the Omaha Douglas Civic Center, please hand your materials to Ms. Lane. In summary, we will take in-room comments first, and then WebEx comments, and then have a last call. Ms. Lane, will you please call the roll?
Director Bogner,
Here.
Director Kavanaugh,
Here.
Director Corr,
Here.
Director Howard,
Here.
Director Mulhoff,
Here.
Director Moody,
Here.
Director Spurgeon,
Here.
Director Williams.
Here.
Announcement regarding public notice of meeting. Notice of the time and place of this meeting was publicized by notifying the area news media by publicizing same in the Omaha World Herald, OPPD outlets newsletter, opp.com, and social media. By displaying such notice on the arcade level of Energy Plaza and by emailing such notice to each of the district's directors on February 10th, 2023. A copy of the proposed agenda for this meeting has been maintained on a current basis and is readily available for public inspection in the office of the district's corporate secretary. Additionally, a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available for inspection on oppd.com and in this meeting room. The board consent action items. The consent agenda items are as follows. Approval of the January 2023 meeting minutes and the February 16, 2023 agenda. SD1 Strategic Foundation Monitoring Report, Resolution Number 6550. SD6 Safety Monitoring Report, Resolution Number 6551. Spring 2023 Transmission Construction, Resolution Number 6552.
Motion to approve.
Sorry, 1 second, please.
Sorry.
Just as a brief point of clarification, based on some public discussions and anticipated discussion today, the items that we see on the screen right now and the resolution 6552, spring 2023 transmission construction, reflects the official name of the RFP that is being awarded. To avoid any confusion with other transmission projects occurring in the district, this is for the South Omaha Road Project and South Rural Structure Replacements. This is not for construction related to the transmission project from 108th and Blondo to 123rd and Pacific. So this action item is not for consideration of work that is already ongoing. If you have comments about any of the items on the consent agenda, we would be glad to hear them. But the public comment period at the end is the time for comments of other business related to OPPD operations. Just for clarification for everyone here.
So moved.
Second.
We discussed these action items at the all committee meeting on Tuesday, February 14th. Do any members of the public in the room have comments on these consent agenda items? If you'd like to make a comment, please come to the podium. I do not see any. Do any members of the public on WebEx have a comment on any of the consent agenda action items? Please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand.
No, we do not.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Lane, can you please call the roll on the consent agenda items?
Director Bogner,
Yes.
Director Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Director Corr,
Yes.
Director Howard,
Yes.
Director Mulhoff,
Yes.
Director Moody,
Yes.
Director Spurgeon,
Yes.
Director Williams.
Yes. The next item for today is the President's report, and I will pass that to CEO and President Javier Fernandez.
Thank you, Director Williams. Thank you all for attending, those here in person and on WebEx or over the phone. It is my pleasure to report the January President's report. I'm going to start, as we always do, with a report on our base load generation. We have 4 base load units that provide power, reliable power to our district, to our region, 13 counties that we serve. Happy to report Nebraska City Unit 1 and 2 had capacity factors of around 70%. You can see those on the screen, 68.1 and 72.9% respectively, while North Omaha Units 4 and 5 were down in the 56.7 and 52.4% of capacity factor. Nebraska City Unit 1, 2, and North Omaha 5 were available and online for the entire month of January. While North Omaha 4, we did have to take that unit offline a couple of times, but very briefly, and still resulted in a capacity factor of 56.7. Tube leaks, suspected tube leaks, and things of this nature that are expected of units that are as old as our North Omaha Unit 4 and 5. Next slide, please. Our balancing generation, which is incredibly important for us, especially during these months, even though you see those numbers are very low. When we call upon those units is usually the most important days, hours during the year when we need to call on that generation. Our Cass County station had a capacity factor of 0. Jones Street actually saw some action during the month of January. We had very cold days, and those 2 units were called up. A reminder, North Omaha units 1, 2, and 3 have typically capacity factors of 0% during the winter due to lack of natural gas, which is the main fuel that we use for those units. That fuel is used for residential heating purposes in that neighborhood. Sarpy County, we have 5 units there, and the combined capacity factors for those 5 units were 3%. So even though it's a small capacity factor, I would like to highlight the fact that some of these units were started as many as 11 times, 11 successful starts on some of these units. So it's a small amount of time they run, but we call upon them regularly to help us balance all the power across the district. Next slide, please. The third leg of our stool when it comes to generation comes from renewables. We have almost 1,000 megawatts of wind. That renewable energy contributed about 32.8% of OPPD's retail energy sales. As we all know, January was a windy month. The wind capacity factor was 43% in January, with a capacity factor of community solar of 9.2%. As expected, we have shorter days during the winter, and the capacity factor of our community solar is expected to be low during these months, but it will continue to increase as the year goes by. Next slide, please. I would like to report on the energy education program. We're expanding this program, which is a really good news, to all middle schools and high schools in OPPD service territory. This opens up a number of parochial schools that have only K through 8 or high school grades. We have 2 of them have requested classroom sessions for 2023 already. We held a teacher workshop in November of 2022 that was open to all grade levels. We had 18 teachers participate, 4th grade to 12th grade instructors. We have already in 2023, 300 students that are on deck through 14 classes scheduled in February and March. These are 12 elementary classes and 2 high school classes. I highlight this because this is a fantastic opportunity for our youth to learn about energy, about the important things that we have to do to keep the lights on. And plus you get to meet our fantastic Eric Bensala over there with a very bright orange jacket that I'm jealous for. He does a fantastic work, he and the team, with really sharing information and sharing knowledge about the energy that we produce at OPPD. So call for action. If you're interested and your school is interested, please contact OPPD. We would love to have more opportunities to share that knowledge in the classroom. Next slide. This is the last time you'll hear from me, at least advertising Hit the Streets, because the event happens in a little bit over 2 weeks. I hope many of you are already registered. We're also hoping for a little warmer weather than today. It'll be on Saturday, March 4th. It's a walk or run for warmth at the Exarban Village. You can see the cost to participate on the screen. The funds that are raised through this event, all of them go to our energy assistance programs. We are pairing up, we're partnering with MUD, and our own board member, Sarah Howard, and her mom, board member at MUD, are co-sponsoring the event. We're looking forward for a very successful event. I will report back next month on the results, but won't be advertising it anymore. Next slide, please. Okay, this is a little unusual. I usually don't provide this type of information, but I think it's important, especially with people in the room. There has been a lot of questions about transmission. What do we do with transmission projects? So here, I'm just going to talk a little bit about transmission projects and why we do what we do. Just to paraphrase it, there's this really good analogy that I use and that people have used with me. We have 2 different systems. We have a transmission system, high voltage transmission system, and a distribution system. Distribution systems are usually the wood poles that you see outside your homes. The analogy that I like to use is high voltage transmission systems, usually those very tall towers, are akin to a highway system, while our distribution system is akin to neighborhood roads. All incredibly important for us to deliver energy at very different voltages, and they all play a critical role in our system. OPPD has three different voltages in our transmission system: 69 kilovolts, 161 kilovolts, and 345 kilovolts. This critical infrastructure is the highways or the interstate system, as I just mentioned, of the electric grid. These lines bring power from all of our generation stations that I just described, and many more that are outside our system, to the substations, where it is then the voltage is either up or downgraded to distribute to our customer owners via our distribution system. OPPD is rebuilding or building new transmission as we reshape our generation landscape to accommodate the record load growth we are experiencing in our region. And also it allows us to move towards our goal of net zero carbon production by 2050. Now, trees or wind-blown vegetation, call it branches that fall, they continue to be a leading cause of power outages during storm events. Having a transmission easement clear of trees and other obstacles allows for the safe, fast, and efficient restoration of the transmission line if planned or emergency maintenance is needed on the line. Next slide, please. We're always looking for ways to do things better, and I think communication is one that I've discussed with Director Moody about opportunities for us to improve our communication practices. In this case, initial calls to landowners began early January, where OPPD right-of-way coordinators attempted to make phone calls individually to the number associated with the OPPD account. After 3 phone calls, if there were no answers or return messages, then the right-of-way coordinators attempted to make contact via door knocks. With no answer, they left a simple letter asking for a call so that they could discuss an upcoming transmission project. There's a lot to unpack with these conversations that happen on a one-on-one basis, and we wanted to make sure that we took the time to do that. All homeowners had some form of contact made by January 16th. Now, we understand there is some confusion in the area, and the project team is committed to working with landowners to understand the project and the timeline for the tree clearing. Next slide, please. Previously, it was not uncommon for OPPD to deviate from policy and allow certain trees and vegetation to remain. Now, OPPD also allowed trimming and pruning rather than removal of trees to provide adequate clearances between power lines and trees. This approach has proven to be ineffective time and again, not only for us, but in the utility industry. We are learning organizations. We try certain practices, and if they're not effective, we need to modify them. They have been ineffective in preventing outages, arcing, and the fire and shock hazards that our transmission lines present. Industry standards for right-of-way management have changed also in recent years as a result of several widespread outages, including one in the Northeast that affected 50 million people in 8 states and portion of Canada. This was almost 20 years ago. It began with incidents like these. Now, utilities operating high-voltage transmission lines are required to establish and follow a vegetation management program that eliminates all threats to safety and reliability of high-voltage transmission lines. It's all about safety. About a year and a half ago, when I was honored to take this position, the board asked me, what are your priorities? And my number one priority was, and continues to be today, it's safety. We have 1,900 women and men, moms, dads, sisters, brothers who go out and work on our behalf to keep the lights on. Safety continues to be and will continue to be my number one priority. We need to make sure that we have everything we can to provide as safe of an environment to our workers and to the people in the community. You all probably remember about a year and a half ago when we had that July storm, we had a lot of calls out for down wires, right? It's super important for us to keep our customer owners, our pets, children, and grown adults away from hazardous conditions as much as we possibly can. So it's all about safety. And if you allow me, Director Williams, I am not an expert, and I would like to call on an expert. I would like to call Danny Belt, who's our Director of Transmission Engineering, to shed a little bit of light of really what are those safety incidents that we're trying to prevent? Because we can talk about safety all day long. It's just a word on paper, but if you can translate that into real life experiences, what are we trying to prevent our men and women from facing on safety?
Thank you, CEO Fernandez. And as you said, Danny Belt, Director of Engineering in our Utility Ops business unit for Oppd. I first wanted to just express empathy, right? I mean, we understand the aesthetic value of trees. We understand, the emotional ties that folks have, with their yards and their landscaping. We understand the environmental benefits, and rest assured, we wouldn't want to take these trees out any more than the landowners would if we could avoid it. When it comes to the actual construction of our transmission lines, whether it's a rebuild or a brand new transmission line that we're starting from scratch, the first thing you'll see on our list of precedent order of construction is right-of-way clearing. It's the first step we do to ensure that, the simple stuff, that we have access, to get to the structure location safely with really, really heavy, big equipment, to be able to see in front of us, be able to know that as we're taking our routes into our structures, that we, have a clear path free of any, obstructions or things that might have come in there that we didn't, plan on. When we get to certain phases of our construction, like wire stringing, what you're going to see, particularly in a rebuild like this, where the conductors exist today, that's not how they're going to look during the construction process. You're going to see lines that are very dynamic. They're going to be pulled in on a pulley system, and they're going to sag and drop, and they could catch. We actually equip our crews with spotters on the ground to make sure that they're watching every conceivable place that they can watch, to make sure that if things are catching in the way that they string the wire, that we can call through radio systems to be able to halt the process, to say, hey, we're unsafe, stop, and regroup. Every time we have a tree or a bush or an obstacle that's in our way during these processes, it prevents our safe communication, our safe visual acknowledgement that the right of way and the process itself is happening the way that it's supposed to. And it really puts our folks in danger, right? The wire catching on trees can sometimes release with a lot of energy and causes a ripple that travels all the way down the wire to where the pulling systems are set up. And so what you're going to see, like this on many of our projects that we've done recently, is clearing the right of way to make sure that there is safe ground communications, that our spotters know exactly what's happening between structures. Trees are the #1 cause of outages across the country, with by a long ways. 50 million customers affected by a blackout 20 years ago. Some of those customers were out for 3 days. That's a safety aspect too, when you consider how vital electricity is for running our homes, working from home health care. Those sorts of things are so much more of a priority for us these days, to ensure that reliability is a part of safety. A cold weather event like what we're going through right now, loss of power for 3 days would be a pretty significant event. So, not just through the construction and the long-term reliability, but the safety of our maintenance crews that have to go and trim with routine, the safety of our restoration crews when we do see some major storm events. Those are all very hazardous conditions. Trees only add to that hazard. And for those reasons, our processes around tree removal and veg management is continuing to mature. And we take these steps, and we don't take them lightly. We know that the impacts that we're having hit home to a lot of people, but it's a necessary part of a pretty complicated and a dangerous profession that we're in.
Thank you, Danny. I really appreciate your perspective. Go to the next and last slide of my presentation. As we always do, it's not fun for me to do this. We have a list outside of my office, I have a list on a frame that I looked at every day. And it's 18 people who have lost their lives in the line of duty. 18. Chris Merrill is one of them. He died on February 23, 1990, as a result of an electrocution that occurred while he was working near 23rd and Gregg Road in Bellevue. Chris was 29 and had been with OPPD only for 2 years. According to Jerry Cross, the division manager at the time, Chris was an exemplary employee and a perfect example of the type of person you will like working with you all the time. Chris was survived by his parents, 4 brothers and 6 sisters. 4 brothers and 6 sisters who no longer have their brother and they haven't had him for a while. And it's, that's why we focus on safety. It's 18 families that are constantly in my mind. And pre-COVID, we used to have a gathering with those families to remember, to tell them we remember. And we continue to stay laser focused so that we don't have to ever add a 19th name on that list. And that concludes my president's report.
Great, thank you. Now we have an opportunity for comment on other items of district business. Do any members of the public in the room have a comment on other items of district business? For clarification specifically for today, if you'd like to make a comment, please come to the podium and state your name, address, and any organization you represent. Acknowledging that there may be multiple members of the public commenting on the transmission project from 108th and Blondo to 123rd and Pacific in the room or via WebEx. The board will hear all comments from all members of the public first before responding to any comments. We'll have an opportunity for that at the end of all comments.
David Bagley, 4611 South 96th Street, Omaha, customer owner. First, a bit of news. The governor has appointed me to the Power Review Board, and on my commission, he wrote, or it stated that he has confidence in my ability, integrity, and patriotism, and I appreciated that from the governor. My first slide here is temperatures for the globe, and they've been flat for 101 months, despite the fact that 475 billion tons of CO2 has been pumped into the atmosphere. Next slide is a little cartoon. I still believe everything they say, first guy says. Second guy says they've been wrong about literally everything so far. I still believe everything they say. So numbers and data are important things here. Here's some more data. I know this organization is interested in numbers. Population of China, 1.4, India, 1.4, Nebraska, 1.9 million. Oh, yeah. So there's 3 billion people in China and India. And Africa, 1.3 billion. OPPD customers, 853,000. Not too many. Here is a graph. China, India, Africa, United States, Nebraska, OPPD. It's not even ranking. So there was an internet sensation last month with the comments of Konstantin Kisin at the Oxford Union debate. Mr. Kisin is a native of Russia, but now he's a comic in England. And comics, they can sometimes really put their finger on things. Mr. Kisin rightly observed that, assuming that carbon dioxide is warming the planet, which I'll assume for the sake of discussion that's true, the future will be decided by the actions of political leaders in China, India, and Africa. Mr. Kisin pointed out that there are millions of people in China and Africa and India. They don't care about the climate. They are starving, literally. They have malnutrition, they're poor, and they don't like their condition. And they want and need cheap and reliable electricity. Xi Jinping, even though it's a communist
30
system,
seconds.
he needs to deliver prosperity to China. He knows that. That's why China is building a new power plant, a new coal-fired power plant every 2 weeks. Again, as I stated many times, anything that OPP is doing about net zero carbon is irrelevant and a complete waste of money and time. Thank you very much.
Are there additional comments in the room?
I really didn't plan to speak. Can you see me? Is the microphone on?
Could you lower it a little bit closer to you? Or
How's
someone
that?
help her?
How's that? How's that? All right. Um, my name is Barbara Haggart. I live at Lake Candlewood. I've lived there for 40 years with my husband, David. Our lines have been regularly, the transmission lines go over the front of our property, over the lake shore. Although that is not true with all the properties in Candlewood. And certainly it goes right over the house and the neighborhoods to our south of Dodge, it go right over the houses. So when you talk about, when they talk about safety, I mean, there's no way that you can take those lines down without, I mean, they're going right over houses, right over their decks. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about really our property. For 40 years, we've had that property inspected by Oppd on regular basis. And the reasons that they have trimmed some of our trees, and in fact removed some that we had planted on the lakeshore, was because there was going to be arcing. And if the branches got within 10 feet of the transmission lines, there would be arcing to be dangerous. And everybody understood that. Nobody has ever mentioned 50 feet. Nobody's ever mentioned that they were going to clear all the trees and all the brush and all the subway and all the shrubbery. We have reason to believe your representatives when they told us that the 10-foot barrier was what they were concerned with. And I think that you have some responsibility for the condition that we are in today. There's a solution to this, and that's to move the lines. Now you say, oh my goodness, we can't do that. Well, of course you can do that. You make new transmission lines across your area and across the country. So you can plot a new transmission line. It will be, and as Mr. Fernandez said, you want it safe, fast, and easy to get to. There's no way through the neighborhoods that this line practically is, that it's ever going to be safe or fast. I mean, it just can't be in the location. They can be relocated. If you had thought of this as a new line, instead of a replacement line, you wouldn't put it where it is now. You'd put it along a public corridor. And I suggest that you go back to your drawing board and look at that option, because now there is no really good way that you can ever guarantee that this is going to be safe, fast, and all those things that you want. I think before I quit, I want to say that you can do this. I mean, we all know you can do it. You
Next
have the
time.
money, you have the staff, you have the legal power, you have the council, you have everything you need to push this through and do it. But you're acting like, frankly, a schoolyard bully that goes and knocks off the heads of the snowmen of the kindergartners that built that day because you can do it. Just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. Don't double down on a poor routing decision that was made 60 years ago. That isn't the right thing to do. It's the wrong for the time, it's wrong for the space, it's wrong for the people living there. I urge you to step back, to pause, and to reconsider what you're doing. You are ruining the environment of a lot of homeowners, 125 property owners in this area. 125 property owners, and to do something that really isn't a good solution to the transmission lines that you want. They're always going to be a problem to you. Thank you.
I appreciate your comment. Ma'am, I'm sorry, can you give us your address? Thanks very much. Are there additional comments in the room? Please come forward. Thank you.
Hi there. Good afternoon, good evening. Kevin Hatcher, 446 South 126th Street. So our backyard is the transmission line goes across. And I just want to say, first of all, I understand what you're doing. These structures are 70 years old. I'm in IT. I know that we need to update stuff. It totally makes sense. We need current stuff. Everyone in Omaha wants good power, no question. And nobody wants interruption of powers, ever. So I'm with you. I get it. Thank you for that. The issue that I have is my neighbor has a tower in her yard, and she and I mean, this is her opinion also, is that we get it. We need to clear all around the towers to replace them. Cranes have to come in. It totally makes sense. We need to clear everything out, and it's going to be a disruption. My concern, my issue is the loop, the rest of the wiring. I had thought that that you guys had to go down the lanes and pull the wires until I learned that it's a pulley system that it's going to pull the wires through. I'm just asking for compassion with us, the homeowners. Just maybe we don't take out the whole 100 feet of trees. Maybe we plan this and we check it out and we see a lot of trees aren't even tall enough to hit the wires. So maybe we just, trim. I know it's a pain in the butt, but look all the money that we would save. We don't clear out this 100 feet of land. We just take out the trees necessary under the loops, and then we save all this money. For hell, Terry Hughes can take a tree out in I've seen it in hours. They have a tree out. So if we would happen to have an emergency, why don't we have Terry Hughes address it then? That tree that was was almost a problem is a problem. Let's take it out now. Get over there. I've lived in the area. We've lived on the lines for 25 years. And we've never had anyone, I know they're strong, heavy duty transmission wires, but I've never seen anyone have to work on them. I've never seen any issues. So I'm just looking for a little compassion for us homeowners. I did read in one of the OPPD documents that you guys have spirit of compassion or what was it I saw? Spirit of compromise was an OPPD saying in the document. That's what I'm asking for. Let's compromise.
3 seconds.
Let's not take out that whole swath and just kind of work through it. Please. But you got to act fast because my trees are coming down Monday. So Javier's with me. I mean, he's my buddy. I'm with him tonight. So hopefully he can stop those guys Monday. Kevin Hatcher, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments in the room? Okay. Yes, no problem. Thank you.
My name's Mary Burnett. I live at 105 South 127th Plaza. Been there 33 years approximately. My home is in that overview photo prior, a couple back, where you see the line directly in my backyard. I'm part of a homeowners association that is called West Fair Acres Place. It has about 40 members, and we all pay dues and use this common area that the high tension wires exist on. So the 5 of us that back up to this common area received letters. I think they're dated January 27th. Never received a phone call. I think landline was used. We never had any contact with anyone, no phone call, no, nothing. So to say that this was all handled is incorrect. So anyway, let me just jump ahead. My concerns here are this pre-job brief you were talking about is kind of such a disappointment. We would like to know timeline, what to expect, how this transfer is going to happen. Are there going to be more polls? Are there going to be shifting of the polls? is this new easement going to shift as well? Are you going to come back and need more trees down the road? And especially things like the statistics of these high voltage lines, are they the ones that cause power outages, trees hitting those, or is it the distribution lines? I mean, some clarity, some transparency, some empathy, all go a long way. And I think, let alone the destruction of landscape and the expense of replacing, talking about reimbursement, we've heard nothing. And I think this is devastating. We have 2 foxes in our backyard, and one of them is pregnant. They're in the underbrush, the canopy. I don't know what's going to happen to them, let alone the birds.
30 seconds.
I did contact, I know there's habitat issues and migration acts that you guys are trying to get under the wire, but I would appreciate stepping back, just like you said, and allowing some of these people that are affected. The 40 people in my neighborhood did not get letters, and they're all affected because our entrance is going to be decimated with, I think, 50 trees total, 20 at the beginning, and then.
That's time.
So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments in the room? See one more.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Peck. My address is 206 Court Plaza in Gretna. I empathize with y'all that live in the area and have homes, and it's a beautiful area. I lived over in that area a long time ago, so I understand some of that. And I'm coming up and speaking on behalf of this organization because they're a great organization. I don't work for them. I'm not getting paid to speak on their behalf. I wasn't even going to come up and speak, but this group of people, they're experts in the area and they know what they're talking about, and they hire the best people out there to handle that. And I assure you that I know that they took the time to do the research and the studies and to come up with the best solution possible. And they are very empathetic. They're not bullies, ma'am. I bet you they'll sit down and they'll talk to you and they'll listen and try to explain things better if that's what you need. And maybe brainstorm some more to see if maybe there's another solution. But I trust that they took the time to do the research, and they've had millions of meetings, I'm sure, to discuss this. But I have faith in them, and I believe that they're doing what's best for the community and for this community, and that's all I really have to say.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments in the room? Okay, I do not see anyone in the room. Do any members of the public joining via WebEx have comments on other items of district business? Please send a chat to the meeting host or use the hand raise feature in WebEx. Telephone users can press *3 to raise their hand.
Ryan Quinn.
I'm a member of Students for Sustainability. My address is 12442 Rose Lane. Today, I'm mostly here to listen, but I'd also like to introduce my group. Students for Sustainability is a group of environmentally concerned high school students. In particular, we are concerned with the recent extension of the North Omaha coal plant. Not only are we concerned with the greenhouse gas emissions associated with the coal plant, but also the adverse health effects it has on the surrounding communities. As I'm sure you're aware, coal plants emit harmful pollutants that can cause severe health effects. Pollutants such as mercury, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides and particulate matters are linked to lung and heart issues. And although we cannot prove causation, we have seen a lot of members in the North Omaha community who have higher rates of asthma, and there seems to be a very strong correlation here. Now, I'm not an expert, but I've talked to many experts in the community, and I do believe there are solutions that we could approach to reduce these harmful side effects, such as reducing the coal capacity factor, installing air quality monitoring systems, and creating a clear plan for decommissioning by 2026. That's the fullness of my comment. Thank you so much for letting me comment, and thank you so much for the work you guys do.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Are there additional comments from WebEx?
David Corbin.
You should be unmuted, Dr. Corbin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, took me several times to say that. David Corbin, 1002 North 49th Street, Energy Committee Chair of the Nebraska Sierra Club. I listened to the committee meeting, and it was interesting to find out the discussion about growth and how that growth might affect OPPD growth in the community. I want to reemphasize promoting energy efficiency and meeting your demand side management goals and helping, as you talked about a little bit in the committee meeting, the infrastructure, the IRA to meet these growth goals. Whether it's Mutual of Omaha, building a huge building or other small buildings, it's important that they are being energy efficient, that they're being sustainable, and that they are doing as much as they can to help to not make any kind of growth within the city even more impactful for OPPD. In the media, I've seen little to nothing about how this new growth will be energy efficient or use clean energy. And I would hope that the IRA and the other federal bills will help with that, and that OPPD could be a leader in that. Such as you discussed also LB 560 to make sure that Nebraska does accept the IRA federal funds so that it can be distributed and help entities like OPPD. Finally, I'll just end with an interesting fact that's related to the discussion about transmission. I just finished the book about Nikola Tesla, and I didn't know until I read that he was friends with John Muir, who is the founder of the Sierra Club. And one of the things that Tesla and Muir agreed on is to expand with conservation principles in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional comments online?
John Pollock.
Yeah, John, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, John. Thank you.
Okay. John Pollock, 1412 North 35th Street, Omaha. I was going to talk mostly about weather this time. I would also like to observe that in general, although I don't know how it would apply to this specific case, we end up with a cycle when it comes to tree growth, where they grow for a while, everything is fine, they look beautiful, and then a storm comes along periodically with strong enough winds to break branches or uproot entire trees. And if the area has received a strong storm recently, there won't be as much damage. But if it's been a while, typically there's a lot of damage, and that includes to power lines. As far as the weather goes, we are in an active pattern, which is not that good of news this time of year. We are going to have a few days of relatively calm weather and a thaw period lasting until early next week. Then starting the middle of next week, we become part of the battleground between some very cold Arctic air that's sort of emptying out. It's toward the end of the season, but we still have a lot of cold air in the Arctic, and it's going to be trying to come down into the western and central U.S. and warm Gulf air to our south. That will give us periodic storm systems moving through, with warmer air coming up ahead, the colder air behind. We could end up either being on the cold side of the storm track, which means snow. The warm side, increasingly this time of year, gets us into a risk of severe weather. And we're expecting that to persist at least for several weeks here into the early March period. I can't give you a specific forecast for heat the streets, but I'm going to say we'll probably be paying careful attention to the forecast as the time gets closer because of the stormy nature of the overall period. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional comments online? Great. We'll check one more time. Any additional comments, either in person or online? No additional comments. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. CEO Fernandez, would you like to comment on the 108th and Blondo to 123rd and Pacific Transmission Project?
Certainly. Thank you, Chair Williams. I want to thank all of you for coming here tonight and sharing your concerns, truly. And on top of that, roads were not great, so even more so. I want to remind you, this is the beauty of public power. We have these type of meetings that not all citizens in the United States have the ability to participate in. You have your elected officials here. We have meetings that are open to the public, and we are owned by our customers. That's what we call customer owners, and I want to celebrate that piece here. People coming in here and talking and having a good conversation. We may not be able to agree on everything, and as I mentioned earlier, a healthy conflict is part of what we do. But I want to assure you that I hear every word that you say and all of your concerns. In the 1950s, when OPPD built this transmission line, 70 years ago, it would have been hard to envision an Omaha west of 120th Street. And I suspect very few could have envisioned the vibrant metropolitan community of 2023. Scott Foch, our Vice President of Corporate Strategy and Governance, shared with me earlier this week some of his childhood memories of cornfields between his family's home, which backed onto Meadow Lane Park, and Boys Town. It makes me wonder what this community will look like in 2050, 2070. We already talked about this quite a bit today, but OPPD must build, maintain, and if, when necessary, rebuild a reliable and resilient infrastructure to fulfill our commitment to the community we serve. To provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy services to all of our customers across 13 counties. Every one of us takes this commitment seriously, very seriously. 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We know our customers' lives literally depend upon the service we provide. I take that responsibility incredibly seriously, and I know the 8 board members that are sitting here with me do the same. This transmission line from 108th Street and Blondo to 123rd and Pacific is a critical part of our infrastructure. It has been for many years. Even more so now with all the growth that we're seeing in the community. We must rebuild it to serve the needs of our customers both today and tomorrow. We must perform this work safely for our customers, for our community, and for our employees who serve you. Prudent safety practices and expertise of our engineers and forestry professionals guide our thinking. As president and CEO, I must rely upon these experts. And it is my duty to question them too. Before you came here today, I want you to know I've asked many of the same questions you asked today. I've asked my team some of these same hard questions. It is my responsibility to trust and verify. And I've gotten satisfactory answers from all of them. And I understand why we must continue with our plans to rebuild this line. I will do everything I can to ensure safety of our employees and of our community. Safety, as I said earlier, it is my top priority. Now, I understand, we understand, and we empathize with your concerns. We know this is not easy for anyone. It's not fun for anyone. Your neighborhood and your backyard, your home is a cherished place. I think we can all relate to that. If we could leave things as they are and ensure the safety of those who will rebuild this line transmission project, we would. I am listening. We are listening. Customer by customer, our project team is striving to hear each one of your concerns, and we are committed to addressing them to the best of our ability. And if we have not, if you feel like we have not communicated with you as much as we should, we will. There are people in this room who have personally made phone calls, and we will continue to make phone calls and meet with every one of you as much as we possibly can to have that dialogue. As we move from the initial tree clearing into construction and finally the completion of the rebuild, which is targeted for March of 2024, we will strive to communicate better. We are a learning organization, and we will continue to figure out ways to communicate better. Different phone numbers, if it's landlines, if it's cell phones, if it's texts, time for us to communicate so that we can avoid surprises and to continue to be available for your questions. Transparency was mentioned earlier today. There are a lot of questions that, as they were asked, I'm thinking we have answers for all of those questions. We will definitely share information about easements and reimbursement and all the things. We have all of that information. We'll be happy to continue to meet with all of you to answer those questions. Now, in the midst of this, we are grateful for the messages of appreciation we have received from several homeowners for the work of the project team and all of them who are supporting them. I have received letters, I have received voicemails, messages, not necessarily pleased with the process, but virtually all of them talk about the OPPD team and how professional they are, and that brings a lot of joy to me and pride. We hear you, we empathize with you. We have our core values, which reflect OPPD's culture, are we honor our community, we have a passion to serve, and we care for one another. And that does not limit to employees only. It's about the community. And I know our teams live those core values on a daily basis. A few of our team members are here tonight to hear from you. And to you, you know who you are. And your team members who are not here today, I want to say thank you. Thank you, because this is not an easy project. These are not easy conversations to have, and you've carried yourselves with dignity, with respect, and with empathy for our customers. And I truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for the way you're conducting this. All of these individuals are committed to working with you throughout this project. Also, I want to express my appreciation to Director Moody. You've been working hard the past few weeks. This is in your district, and you bring your questions and concerns to us. You've been acting as liaison sometimes and questioning me, challenging me and challenging the team. Why can't we do X, Y, Z? Why can't we do more? And really, it's that questioning attitude that continues to help us do things better. He's been hearing from a lot of you, and I've been hearing from him and from others. All of this is so that we can have an opportunity to work with all of you and address all the questions and issues that you have. Finally, please know that I hear you. We will continue to provide information and be transparent and hear ideas. But I also want you to hear it from me today. This line is incredibly important. It's important for the reliability of our region. It's important for us to build it, rebuild it in a way that is safe, not only for our employees, but for your families too, for the people in the community. When we're rebuilding, when we're accessing those right-of-ways with big machinery, we need to make sure that we have line of sight. Once again, I truly appreciate and I thank you for coming to tonight. It is important for me, and I know my board members appreciate also hearing from you. I want to thank you for that, and thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, CEO Fernandez. Director Moody, do you have any comments on the subject?
I do. Thank you, Director Williams. I'll be brief. Javier, that was well said. Thank you. I appreciate that. I also want to start with a couple of expressions of gratitude. Again, to those of you that are in the room, I've spent a lot of time in your neighborhood recently, and it is truly a beautiful neighborhood. It's laden with trees that have been around for a really long time. I live in a similar neighborhood, and I can promise you that if I were in your shoes, I would be very frustrated and upset as well. So thank you for taking the time to come down here. Thank you for taking the time to contact me, to ask hard questions. We try to create an atmosphere of psychological safety at OPPD, as Javier talked about, and that means that we can handle hard questions and we encourage them. I also want to thank, as Javier mentioned, the team that's doing this work. This is not easy. I can't imagine how challenging it is for you to have some of these conversations, and I want to thank you for your diligent work on this front. As Javier mentioned, I've had many a phone call, and I appreciate them all. I've tried my best to return all of them and pass them along to the subject matter experts. My job here is not to answer your questions. My job is to field your concerns and make sure that your questions do get answered. So to the extent that there are still gaps, please let me know. I'm more than happy to have any conversation that's necessary to do so. As Javier mentioned, we've had a handful of conversations, and I'll echo the fact that there are opportunities for improvement. There's no denying that. We see them. We've identified them. We intend to continue to work to do better in this space. But your conversations and the questions you're asking are undeniably helping us do our work better. A couple more things. One is one of the frustrations has certainly been, hey, why now? What's changed? And that's definitely one of the questions that I've had as well, is what's changed? And as Javier pointed out earlier, and as Danny mentioned in his comments, the requirements are changing. And so as the requirements change, as we learn more about what needs to happen around transmission lines, it's not static. And so that's a big part of the reason, and that's one of my learnings through this whole process. But at the end of the day, this is a safety issue, and this is a reliability issue at its core to me. And as I've struggled with the challenges that you all are experiencing, for me, it comes back to the importance of safety in this work. This is a big project. It's a high-risk project, and these are very dangerous lines, and they are not to be messed with. So the safety for me is paramount, and I echo Javier's emphasis on that as being one of the priorities writ large, let alone with a project like this, that safety is absolutely paramount. I would encourage the team to continue to be respectful, be reasonable in your work, seek compromise where it is appropriate while maintaining the importance of safety and reliability. And again, thank you for everybody that came down. Thanks for the phone calls, the queries. I'm more than happy to continue to take those and do as best I can to field any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Moody. I'm very well familiar with an issue that is particularly important to people in your district, and so I understand what you are working on with people who you represent. We have generally concluded the comment period. We did have an additional hand raised, and in light of making sure we hear from everyone who has thoughts, we would like to take the additional comment from WebEx at this time. Aaron, if you can help them with that. I'm not sure who that might be, but please go ahead and test your microphone, WebEx commenter.
Barb Violi.
Barb, are you there? Barb, if you can, I'm not sure what's going on exactly. It might be on your side. We think that we should be able to hear you, but we cannot right now.
Barb, can you unmute?
Okay, seems like maybe we do not have clear communication at this point, but we can follow up and try and get in touch with them later and receive that comment and make sure that it is recorded as part of the comments for the meeting. Yes, Director Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I have one question. Earlier, one of our speakers raised the idea of possibly relocating or rerouting the existing line. And I wanted to ask if that was given any consideration. I mean, as a layman, I'm thinking, Blondo down to 120th Street, south to Pacific West to 123rd would basically, avoid a lot
Now
of.
what have I done?
I didn't know if that was a possibility.
Darn it.
Okay, we've got a little traffic here. So, Mike, I appreciate that comment. Since you're in the room, I'm going to ask you to wait on that one for just 1 second. Barb, are you there now? Okay. Barb, we would be glad to hear from you if you can unmute. Okay. Well, we'll try this. Dr. Kavanaugh, your question was consideration given to relocating the line along large public right-of-ways, 120th Blondo, Maple, that kind of thing? Great. And CEO Fernandez, do you or someone from the team have a response that we can provide for Dr. Kavanaugh?
The short answer is yes. We study a lot of the options, but I'm going to have Danny Belt again, Director of Transmission Engineering.
Thank you, Director Kavanaugh. Yeah, absolutely. We've actually done other projects in the metro area in the last 5 to 10 years where we've kind of done the same thing. In some cases, we actually have relocated lines because it's optimal, right? If we're in the backyard, as some of our customer and owners have pointed out, right? It's going to be a little bit more challenging for us to get to backyards to do maintenance in the future. So that is a primary goal for us, is to try to make it, near the roadway so it's more accessible, that sort of thing. In this particular case, we got a couple things going against us on this project. Number one is really that this is a double circuit line, right? So where you might see a transmission line that's located immediately next to a roadway where all the wires are hanging over the roadway, this one's going to have wires on both sides of the pole. So really what you're talking about is rerouting this line to a new area where you're going to affect new customer owners, right? We're going to have to take out trees because the new routes will involve wires on both sides of the poles, and will absolutely be affecting more landowners than just the 116 that are along this route. And then the other consequence really is that we still have to remove the old line. We're still going to be in there. We're going to need clear access to every structure to be able to take it out. We're going to need to pull the wire out. In those cases, it might still require us to clear some of the trees out of the way. So we're not going to totally avoid impacts on the existing customers while also introducing significant impacts to brand new customers and the challenges of acquiring easements and those sorts of things as well. So yes, it was considered. Appreciate the question, and I'll pause just for a second, see if you have a follow-up.
No, that's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thanks for that clarification. Let's try one more time. Is Barb there or no? Barb, if you can hear us, feel free to unmute. Okay, we'll do our...
unmuted my.
Yes, Barb, hello.
Hello, are you there?
Yes, we are here and we can hear you. So
God, I am so horribly embarrassed. I'm in this. Can you hear me?
Name and your address.
My name is Barb Violi. I live at 12442 Deer Hollow Drive. I'm in this business about the trees and the easements. We have had such misinformation from OPPD. For instance, are swimming pools owned by private people getting a waiver? Are people's sheds getting a waiver if they're within the 100-foot easement, which is 50 feet on either side? We've been told that any tree 10 foot or taller is going to be cut. We have also, it's just been a bunch of misinformation by well-intentioned people. And the first business that we received here supposedly was a flyer in our door. The next thing, I didn't receive the flyer. The 27th of January, I had 8 people from OPPD in my yard that morning at 11 o'clock on February the 1st. And I gave questions to them. I never got an answer. I've called Jake Farrell. He's very nice, but he's yet to get back with me with the answers. We were told to contact our insurance company to get a waiver from them for any liability issues that would occur on our property. Are you able to hear me, sirs?
Yes, ma'am, we are. Please continue.
Oh, okay. And we would just like the truth. I've been watching this the whole time, and you're talking about an easement on one of your frames that was at a 45-degree angle going up. And I don't understand. They have cut so many trees down already that it looks like a scorched earth policy. But I do want to know who's getting the waiver, because my 50-year-old pine oak tree, he would like a waiver also. And I think that's all I have to say. I've tried to be very cooperative, but I'm really drawing a line now, because it's the misinformation, how it's been handled has been a nightmare for any of us. And I don't really want to say I represent Deer Ridge. So many people don't know anything about it till you knock on their door and say, we're coming here Monday morning. And is there any way that we can get better information? The letter said very little. People thought, oh, you're coming like you come every 2 years and cut the side of the tree off. And I think I'm through. Are you there?
Yes, thank you for your comments, Barb. And I believe Jake is in the room here. So I believe that we have your contact information, and I think you can expect.
Right, and I did contact Director Moody, and he didn't know anything about it and is yet to respond to me for the questions. And I also feel like you guys have not done a policy of policing the easement. You never walk down the easement and say, this shouldn't be here, move it now.
Barb, thank you for your comments. We do have that. We'll make sure that we have your contact information. Again, Jake and Director Moody are both here in the room right now.
I'm sorry, my connection was so troublesome. Thank you.
Thank you for sticking with it. We appreciate hearing from you, and someone will be back in touch with you. Thank you.
Okie doke.
Great. So, I'm sorry?
I'm guessing you guys looked into. Is that?
I'm gonna.
I mean, you know, then we
Yes.
do this.
So yes, just to be clear, the format for the meeting is to offer public comment, and we can provide technical response to you. And there are technical experts in the room right now. So after the meeting is concluded, I will make sure to have someone answer that question for you. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Okay, great. Because there are plenty of technical experts literally in the room right now who can answer that question for you in person. Does anyone on the board have a follow-up question about the technical details of the transmission line?
Sure, I'll ask a question. Can this line be put underground?
I'm going to ask again a friend here. I'll briefly talk about, that was another very important piece of information that we consider. And there's disruptions with underground lines. I'm going to have our expert explain to us what our policy is and what issues would we encounter if we were to bury lines.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Very much appreciate it. Yes, we've pretty much exhausted all possible alternatives to actually building this line. In fact, I'll maybe answer a couple of questions before I get to the underground one, which is, what else have we done, right? We've looked at like not doing the project, right? What are the other circumstances in which we don't need this transmission line uprated? What other modifications can we do to substations, to other facilities on the system so that this line isn't part of it? What might come as part of the system changes that we're going to see over time that might maybe negate the amount of work we need to do on this line. All of those options were totally exhausted, right? At the end of the day, every project we do, every new generation asset, every load expansion that happens on our system as driving an increased need for this line. It's a required portion of our system in a very dense energy load pocket of our system, and it absolutely needs to be rebuilt. To the underground question, yes, we've looked at that as well, and it's a typical question that we'll get in any kind of public involvement process we do for a new transmission line. Underground transmission assets are not the same as underground distribution assets. The life of those assets is about half of what it is for an overhead asset. When there is outages on an underground facility, it takes us weeks, not days, to restore. The cost is exorbitantly expensive. It's 10x, probably of what an overhead construction would be. And at the end of the day, the trench that we would see in these backyards would probably take the same amount of trees out anyway, just to create the underground duct bank it would take to install this facility underground because of the capacity and high voltage of the line. So for those reasons, underground was removed. This one actually has additional complications of being next to Candlewood Lake. High water tables, the amount of challenge from an environmental standpoint of digging holes of that size next to that kind of a water body would definitely add to the complexity and challenge of this overall project.
Great, thanks very much. Again, in keeping with the format of the meeting, the public comment period is the last item on our agenda. So thank you everyone for being here. I hope you all stay safe and warm this evening. And at 6:21, we will adjourn.